I have so many thoughts about this.
I'm so excited.
This is a podcast. Let's hear him.
I think he's completely insufferable.
Yep.
I find him so difficult to work with.
Welcome to Drafted, the podcast where we, draft things. I'm your host, Daniel Prentice, and as always, I am joined by my buddy, Preston Thompson. Preston, how are you doing, and what are you drinking this week as we record this podcast at noon in the middle of the week?
Well, yeah, you spoiled it. It's noon on a work day, so I never told myself that on this podcast. I always had a firm promise that I would be drinking something alcoholic while we recorded, but it is noon on a work day, so I'm drinking some water, kind of unfortunately, but that's completely my fault. These two had to work around my schedule, so I could have squeezed them in for a beer, but my fault.
Yeah, you mentioned these two. We are very happy to be joined this week by one Hans Appen, the publisher of the Appen Media Group, which includes the Appen Podcast Network, of which Drafted is a very proud member. Hans, thanks so much for joining us. How are you doing this week? And is there anything that you're partaking of beverage-wise for this very special episode of Drafted?
Gentlemen, thank you for having me. I've been begging Preston to get on the show. Finally let me come on.
That's not true.
No, I'm with Preston. What's the general rule of thumb is afternoon, but it is literally 12:03, so I feel like that's a little too close. So I got a nice passion fruit Gatorade I'm sipping on today.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, this was part of our stipulation that Hans would host us on the Appen Network if he got to come on and talk about politics for an hour. So this is the drafted version of political talk.
This is like my dream.
Yeah, Hans and I host the
I get to merge Game of Thrones, sports, politics. It's like this is like my fever dream right here.
Well, that's a big spoiler alert for Preston's draft parameters. But I want you guys to know that while you guys are not drinking, I'm holding it down. I've got a huge line of tequila shots lined up that I'll be taking throughout the episode.
Excellent.
To make up for the I just had my orange juice. I just ate breakfast. I'm still in my pajamas, and I'm also drinking water. So sorry to disappoint you all this week. Not that I don't think any of you guys really care. But yeah, Preston. I mean, Hans may have let the cat out of the bag a little bit. But what are we drafting this week?
Tonight we are drafting 6 various positions inside the executive branch of the United States, using only characters from the HBO hit series Game of Thrones, which, to answer the burning question, yes, we are including that final season, which I'm sure will have implications on who people take and who people consider to be genocidal maniacs. So hopefully, that still leaves enough for us on the board to choose from.
And Preston, there are 6 specific spots we're taking for this executive branch of ours, correct?
Yes, I'm going to run through them. So, okay. President, Vice President, Chief of Staff, Secretary of State, Secretary of Defense, and we've kind of merged Secretary of the Treasury and Commerce / Master of Coin.
Master of Coin, baby, yeah. Sounds good. I have not watched that much Game of Thrones. I watched about halfway through, right up to the episode where the mountain crushes Oberyn Martell's head like a grape. I stopped
Spoilers.
Right there.
yeah. Hold on. I'm going to interrupt you for a second.
Listen, we're all aware by now.
Yeah, we are not going to pay attention to things that may spoil the show for you.
No.
If you have not watched it by now, that is your fault.
There is no one in the world that has not watched it.
Don't listen to this. Yeah, seriously.
I was going to ask what our spoiler rules were for
No, spoil everything. Spoil absolutely everything. If you're listening to this podcast and you haven't seen Game of Thrones, I mean, that's on you, I would say.
You're in the weird section of the Venn diagram. I don't know if you exist.
I'm a little jealous of you, actually, Daniel. You're like, it's like people who have never seen The Office. It's like, oh my God, you have so many hours of good television to still watch in your life.
Yeah. I mean, but if you watched up till that point, Daniel, you saw
I saw all the good hours of it.
You saw
basically.
The best parts of it, I would think. Yeah. That season for me is my favorite season, the one that you got to the end of. So that's, I think, when they left the books that were written out for them and went into kind of their own brains, which started to bring it way downhill very quickly. But you'll watch the end of it someday.
He hasn't seen the Battle of the Bastards yet, though.
No, that's one of the best. Yeah, TV fights of all
I
time.
have seen that episode, actually. That's the one where Jon
have?
Snow is being onrushed by the thousands
Yes.
and takes out his sword like he's going to fight all of them off, right?
Yes.
I have seen that episode.
I think I saw HBO spent like $15 million on that episode alone.
That's insane.
Yeah.
But it
Still
worked for him.
couldn't
I
stick
mean,
the landing with all that
it was-
money.
It was the monoculture. Every single person watched it. That's why we're not worried about spoilers. But and I have our draft order. Hans, you will be having the first pick, thanks to random.org. I will be picking second, and then Preston will be third. And of course, it's the our standard 6-round snake style draft. So Preston will have the first pick of the second round. Hans, if you're ready, you don't have any further questions for Preston, our draft maester this week. You want to get us started?
Yes, I am ready. And I have to stipulate that my draft order changed a little bit given one of the little wrinkles we put into this, that we can draft our characters now and then put them announce what position they'll be holding later.
Mm-hmm.
Sure.
So I'm going to go with my most versatile draft pick at number 1 overall with Braun.
Oh, wow.
My number 1 pick.
Sir Bronn of the Blackwater. That's odd to me.
Current Master of Coin, Sir Bronn.
Yeah, you're going to need to talk me through why you thought that was the most versatile pick.
For a bunch of different reasons. He is versatile on the show. He is kind of a backgrounds guy. He could fill into my spot of VP, Master of Coin, Secretary of Defense. Just depending on where this draft order falls, he's kind of my utility player I can kind of plug and play.
Now, I will say I do love Bronn. He's one of the very few characters from Game of Thrones that I actually did like and root for. But he seems a little self-interested, and by
Yes.
a little I mean like extremely self-interested. Is that
That's
not
his
at all
only
occurrence rate
driving
considered?
character motivation? Yeah, no, that's exactly right. Yeah. I also think like it's totally great to have a utility flex person, but to take them first pick, first round, we'll see if it pays off. That's
I mean,
all-
there's
that's all I'll
value,
say.
but I do have my concerns.
I don't want to just start slinging mud at the person who is hosting us on their podcast network, but we'll see how it is.
I will say, I may have revealed some of my more preferential characters before we started recording, and got a little bit of a sour response from the
that's
two of
true.
you. So I have a feeling they may be available later.
Yeah, I mean, I'm gonna spoil it. Like Hans mentioned Jon Snow, and both Daniel and I kind of just vomited in our mouths. So I guess he's thinking he can sit on Jon for a while and get him in a later pick. That's probably smart.
That's the gamble I'm taking.
Okay, Dan.
We'll have to see if it pays off for him. But yeah, so when you started setting up this pick, I got nervous that you're going to take my versatile pick. I'm taking Tyrion Lannister here. Kind of for the same reasons. I mean, I think, like Bronn could be a jack of all trades in a lot of spots. I think Tyrion is like an elite tier option for basically all of these spots. I think he'd be a fine president. He would be a fantastic vice president or secretary of state, chief of staff. I mean, he even was master of coin for a bit, and seemed to do pretty well in that role.
Yeah.
He has military experience. He's just a great leader, charismatic, works well with a lot of different people, can bring groups together, knows how to play the game, can do the kind of shady things, that I need him to do. Love getting Tyrion second overall. I thought for sure he was going to go first. So I'm not going to tie him down to a position yet, but yeah, definitely happy to take Tyrion right now.
I think that's a good pick. He was high on my board, and now that you told me before we recorded that you had a clear number 1, and that makes a lot of sense that he's the clear number 1. Okay.
He was my clear number 1. Yep. So Hans, thank you so much for taking Bronn.
So okay, this falls to me now. We haven't exactly like stipulated the plot of this that we're like fighting against each other as teams. I don't really think that matters. I don't think
so either.
Yeah.
We're just going for best here.
I came at this from a perspective of who do I least want to be against? Like, who do I least want to not be president? Because Game of Thrones is a show about everybody coming for everybody else. Like, who do I need to be at the top because I'm the most scared of him coming for me? And coincidentally, this character has a lot of experience that is going to help at that president position. So I'm drafting him explicitly to be the president. And that is Tywin Lannister. He has unbelievable military background. He knows how to work with various personalities, including his children and his commanders and all that other things. He does rub some people the wrong way, but he's very singularly motivated about his own success. And if he's at the top, I don't have to worry about him trying to get up any further. He's at the top already. So I like him as that pick. He's a good delegator. I think that's going to work out well.
Yeah, Tywin clearly framed as a villain, within the show, which, may raise eyebrows for some people, but I think it's inarguable that he is someone that you want on your side. Mm-hmm. If Tywin Lannister is on your side, you're doing pretty well.
And that's really it. Like, just get him on your team.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm with you.
Couldn't that argument be made for the reason why you would not want Tywin Lannister to be your president?
Well,
though?
Again, if he's
your
the
president
highest
has to
up
serve
already,
all people
in this universe, he can't go higher.
Hypothetically,
he can't go higher, right? There's not like a king above the president or whatever. So, like, assuming he has complete control, I'm imagining he'll feel relatively personally fulfilled, and he won't feel the need to betray everybody and all this other stuff. It is a lot of executive authority to give to somebody who seems to be easily bribable. So, but we're gonna ignore that for a little bit.
Yeah, I had Tywin on my list, and I'd consider him for president. I think I would rather have him in one of the more support roles, just because of the areas of expertise he brings, with maybe a little concern for the draconian tendencies. But yeah, I can't.
That's never worked in the presidency before, for sure.
Well, so that's another question. Are we going for most effective, or our ideal executive branch?
I think those can be the same thing, right? Can't our ideal be the most effective? Yeah, I mean, he has a personality fit for the position. That's all I'm saying.
Sure.
And that he needs a lot of authority, freedom, and leeway, and that's one of the only positions that kind of gives that to him.
So what we've learned...
I'd also like to ask a clarifying question as well.
Go ahead.
Are we drafting these players to fill traditional presidential cabinet positions, or are these modern-day Trump cabinet positions?
I mean,
which
draft them...
No matter what side of the aisle you are, you can agree they are different roles.
They're different now than they were 10 years ago. Yeah. I mean, I'm drafting mine based on, what I learned in school, which I realize is not correct, and it's a little naive, but that's kind of what I'm doing.
Yeah,
you're taking the optimistic route.
Yes,
I am as well. I'm going the ideal, traditional, idealistic route. But also, what we're learning right now is that Preston's ideal president is Tywin Lannister.
Absolutely,
which is maybe an area for concern from my co-host here. But.
Here's the thing: if he's on your team, you want him, you love him.
Sure, you hate to play against him, love to play with him.
Absolutely.
All right, so who you taking with your second round pick, Presto?
So I'm going to take another one that was really high up, and I don't really know where he's going to go. I think he could make a good chief of staff, but also could do a lot of other things, and that's Lord Varys. Now that I've got Tywin in there, I'm hopeful that I can find some characters that value loyalty a lot. And Varys, while he does bounce from place to place, he's not necessarily a heavy betrayal kind of guy until we get towards the really, really last season. And even then, his motivation is still clear. His motivation is to protect the people. So I feel like he slots into a lot of interesting places, and it's just one of the smarter kind of in the shadows people that could be useful.
Yeah, that's a fantastic pick. I had Varys lined up to take next. My dream start was Tyrion Varys, two of the smartest and most likable characters in the show,
and they're paired well together.
So well. And they know how to do the things that you need to know how to do to get things done. So yeah, I mean, Varys, really just a great pick. I was a little surprised he didn't go in the first round, but I mean, effectively, you took those 3-4 spots.
Yeah,
and they're
pretty much did.
Effectively the same. So, Hans, do you have any thoughts on the spider?
Yeah, no, I think he's a perfect fit there, and now I'm going to have to rethink who I'm going to have as my Secretary of Treasury Commerce here. My names are crossed out.
Yeah. Okay, well that brings
my list is dwindling very quickly, and I'm a little concerned. I'm gonna have to be.
That's
I'm taking hot pie for Secretary of Defense.
I wanted to work hot pie in so badly, and there's just really not a spot for him, is there?
No. Well, we'll find him something.
Maybe,
ambassador to the Netherlands or something.
I am buoyed by you saying that you're already, panicking a little bit. I spent so much time preparing for this because I knew, I have not seen nearly as much of this show as you guys. So I was talking to experts outside the show, reading the fan wiki of like basically every single character in the show. So hopefully that will be enough to make up the ground here. But with my second pick, it might be off the board a little bit, but one of my favorite characters in the show, and she brings, I think, every kind of facet you could need to like have a successful political player. On the outside, she's very charming and wise, and underneath, behind the scenes, she is willing to do the dirty stuff that, you know, hits people below the belt when no one else is going to be able to see it. I'm taking Lady Olenna Tyrell here, another player that I think can fill a lot of different roles for me depending on how the rest of my draft plays out. Again, would be a great president, Secretary of State. I'm so psyched to get her here. I also had a first-round grade on her, so really happy to get her in the second round.
I think that's perfect pick.
Solid pick.
Love it.
Awesome. That's great to hear from you guys, as the two people that have actually watched the show. All right, Hans, you are up with 2 picks.
I'm going to go similar to Preston and pre-announce that I'm drafting this character to be my president, and I think he'd be a far better president than Tyrion Lannister. This is another one of my little dark horse picks. I'm going to go with Robb Stark as my president.
I also had him in president consideration. Just a great leader.
Mm-hmm.
And extremely handsome.
Unbelievably
extremely handsome. He respected on both sides of the aisle. Military background. He's kind of the people's champion.
Mm-hmm.
I think he's the character in the show we never got enough of, and I'm still a little PO'd that they killed him off a little too early.
Yep.
But I think he's going to rise to the position he was born to fill as the president of my cabinet.
I want to throw out a theory here, and I actually had this conversation with my fiance a couple weeks ago, and I have not done enough research to know whether or not this is actually true, but it's a hunch that I'm sticking to undeniably, which is that in, you know, future populations deciding approval ratings, presidents are always better when they have dogs. Always. Uniformly. They're always more liked in the future. If that means that they make better decisions, they, you know, have better people around them. All of the good presidents that we hold in our mind had dogs, and the really bad ones did not. Now, there's probably some fact checking I need to do there, but like any good political podcast, I'm going to throw that statement out there as if it is fact, and nobody's allowed to check me on it right now until after it's already reached the ears of a lot of unsuspecting people. So, and Robb Stark comes with the dog, the nice giant direwolf. So, good on you for that.
Exactly.
Hard to argue with that.
And with my second pick here, this is going to be the hardest pick I'm making so far because I have a feeling, I guess technically my third pick, I have a feeling with who I want to take 4 will not be available by the time the snake comes back to me. But with my third pick, I'm going to go with Jaime Lannister.
Any particular role in mind?
I've got him slated to be either my vice president or my Secretary of Defense, but keep in mind, I've also already drafted Bronn, so we'll see how that plays into my thinking here in a sec.
Are you concerned at all as to how Robb Stark and Jaime Lannister will get along in your cabinet?
I am, but I'm more of like a team of rivals kind of guy.
Mm-hmm.
You want differing opinions coming, and then you have a strong executive to make the final call. That's what you're going for?
I do, exactly.
Okay,
exactly.
I like it. Yeah.
All right, fair enough.
I don't think Robb Stark is going to be taking any BS from Jaime, so I feel confident Robb can handle it.
Okay.
Fair enough. Okay. Now, I'm so excited to make this pick. I was worried that this guy was going to go early. I'm thinking now that he probably was just not on your board at all. And we'll see how you two feel about it. But I'm taking my vice president here. I'm taking Drogon.
Oh my god. I had thought about it a lot. And I have so many questions because these are all of the things that I thought about.
Well, let me lay out why I'm taking him here first.
Yes, go ahead.
Extremely powerful.
Yeah.
Great companion, great like sidekick support. That's exactly what I want in my VP. If Lady Tyrell or Tyrion end up being my president, I want someone with a little bit of brute force behind him there, as my main sidekick. Also, there's not a single character in the entire show of Game of Thrones that shows a greater resentment for the monarchy and the quest for unchecked power than Drogon. He's going to keep me in line. Whoever my president is, if they get out of line, if they do any of the, stuff that's uncouth
stuff
for our ideal political structure. I love this pick. I mean, I think he's a perfect vice president, if I'm being honest.
Okay. He is significantly more independent than I think you are realizing here. And I want to grant you some slack because you haven't seen some, like, maybe 2 to 3 seasons of the show. But when he reaches full grown, he kind of goes off and does whatever he wants. There are several scenes where he eats one of Daenerys' constituents, and that's an awkward moment as a leader. I also am not convinced he would respond to anybody except Daenerys. Like, there's no evidence that he would be willing to take a backseat or a sidekick role to anybody that isn't her.
No, I think he's grown a lot.
He's emotionally matured.
Significantly, yes.
Yeah, that's why he burned down the Iron Throne.
And
fiery
exactly.
ball of rage.
I mean, that was his maturity moment. He saw the light, and really the only character maybe in the arguably show to do so. But yeah, no, I also think it's maybe not the worst idea to have a bit of a loose cannon as VP. He takes some of the some of the spotlight off of the president. Maybe if you talk about the VP having the scandal, the president gets a little more leeway. Which I think is a positive in and of itself.
I don't hate the logic. I will also say, like, VP. I think Hans and I are both of a similar mind about this. You can tell me if we're wrong, but VP was always going to be my last drafted spot because I think
really?
It's the most useless spot on this list.
Oh, I disagree.
They have
with
no
that,
power or authority, so I was just going to wait until the very end and then pick whoever I thought was left.
I think the supporting role for your chief of staff, or your head person is so important.
Okay.
I would agree with you, Preston, except Lady Tyrell. Maybe a modern day comparison here. She's up there in age.
Mm-hmm.
So the VP could play a larger role in Daniel's cabinet than may have otherwise.
Exactly.
That's a great point. Yeah, Drogon for president. Oh my god. Ooh.
He'd be a great
Could
president.
we say that Drogon, for a historical context, is the Spiro Agnew of the vice presidency?
Oh my god. And there goes our listening numbers as they slowly dwindle down the charts.
Yeah, everyone got
my
that
God.
reference, right?
Yeah. I think I did, and I'm the only one I think who will. So
It's you and me, Preston.
yeah,
I mean,
it's
I
us.
know that Spiro Agnew was a political figure. I'm not super familiar with, and that he's generally a punchline, but not super familiar with his character traits, so to speak.
Not a good dude. Anyways, so this comes to me now, right? And I get two picks?
Back to back picks. Back to back pack. I can't say picks. I tried twice and I missed both times. Back to back picks for Preston here.
It's all of the tequila shots.
Yep, they're catching up with me.
Okay, I'm kind of struggling here. I've really felt good about all of the drafts we've done on previous episodes, and I thought that I deserved to win all of them. This one I feel kind of starting to slip away from me, but I don't really know how to rescue it. I think, okay, I'm going to draft specifically for a chief of staff. I know I said Varys could do chief of staff, but I think he could fall into something else. Mm-hmm. Specifically my chief of staff, I want someone who is relentlessly loyal, who's very capable and convincing, kind of a bit of a self-starter, doesn't have a lot of outside attachments or motivations besides just executing the will of my chief executive. And that, for me, is Brienne of Tarth. I think she would work okay with Tywin. If Tywin kind of sends her on little missions and things in this universe, I think she gets the job done. And I also think she's, exceedingly loyal. So all of those things are things that are very helpful for my chief of staff. Any thoughts before I move on?
She's one of the stronger characters in the show. I think it's a great chief of staff.
Yes, I mean, seems fine
I
to me.
will remind you, though, I've already selected Jaime Lannister, so I'm not sure.
Could be a problem.
He just
we don't know how well she'll work with other characters.
he just serves as a distraction. Okay, next I'm gonna go after a Secretary of Defense type character. This is my hothead. This is the person that's probably, they can lose it a little bit, but under the control of Tywin, this is a very powerful force to be reckoned with, and that is Khal Drogo for Secretary of Defense. I'm envisioning in this universe that our Secretary of Defense is like how they used to be, like literally riding on horseback with all the other soldiers. Like he's not a pencil pusher, he's not an office guy, he's out there in the field. And if that's the case, that's who I want out there. Now, there is a language barrier. We will have to find a translator, but I'm not super concerned.
I do have a question.
How many picks do you have left?
He's got 2 picks.
Yeah. I gotta find a bilingual
fix
person.
That language barrier in 2 picks.
You gotta hope that I think a very specific character comes back around too. But
I suppose.
I will say, I don't think we said this on air, but in our preparation for the draft, we said characters had to appear in more than one season, correct?
So he technically appears in a later season as a dream sequence. Like Daenerys has a vision, and he appears in the vision. That's how I'm throwing that into my logic.
Okay. So do we think that Ned Stark is eligible?
I think he counts. I think he's fair game because he appears as a younger Ned Stark in the series. So I feel like Ned as a character is fair game for sure.
Okay. All right. Well, with my next pick, I mean, Cal's a great pick. You said Secretary of Defense was that pick, right?
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, that's a great pick. Great military leader. Maybe not the best guy, but he shows growth. Danny cracks open that heart of his a little bit. Yeah.
Brings him down to earth. Yeah.
It was nice.
And he's got some leadership, that can help.
Oh, for sure. Great leader.
And Tywin's a great dealer of personalities. That's all being president is. You just got to know how to deal with personalities.
Mm-hmm.
Your cabinet is becoming more and more evil as we go, Preston.
Listen, I like to get things done. Shake it up a bit.
He's a doer, this
I'm
Preston.
A doer.
Okay, well, I am going to take my chief of staff next, just like Preston did with Brienne of Tarth. But I'm going to take...
I'm nervous here.
Are you? Okay, let's see how this goes. I'm going to take Sansa Stark.
Whew.
Sansa was really, in the time that I watched the show, really not my favorite character. And by that I mean one of my absolute least favorites. She, cozied up to Joffrey when he was just clearly the worst. But she was a little girl, and throughout the show, I know she grows immensely. She learns a ton from Littlefinger about, the ins and outs and how to get things done. And I want to say that Hans, our political guru, described the chief of staff. This was the job description. Hires, fires, sort of manages who comes in and out of the White House, protects the president's agenda image, negotiates with Congress, advises the president, etc. Now, Sansa just... She's a doer. She gets everything done. She is an expert in so many different things. She can play the game extremely well. She knows how to protect her own. She clearly is out for the Stark family. So I'm going to bring her into my family here and have her as my chief of staff.
I like it. That's a good pick.
Hans,
did I sabotage your pick? You said you were nervous.
You did not sabotage my pick. And while I will not be drafting this person just because of the way things have lined up, I think we may have some listeners take issue with you not taking the other Stark sister, Arya, over.
She's so much of a loner, though. I mean, it doesn't seem like she would communicate well with people who disagreed with her. And Sansa's ruled an entire region before. Yep. Like she knows what it takes to
effectively.
I would say so. Now she's definitely got, and this is what I was thinking about when I considered Sansa on my list. She's got an isolationist personality. She's like, I'm gonna do what's best for the North and the North only. I'm not worried about anything else. Don't even ask me. So that's kind of a concern, but she does that relatively effectively. And they did get attacked by the largest horde of zombies the world has ever known without much help. and defended it okay, she certainly has something to do with that.
Yeah, but my consultants on Arya said she's great, like head of the FBI or Secret Service.
Yes.
But maybe you don't want her in the executive branch so much. I do love Arya.
Totally
I mean,
agree.
she's definitely one of the best and most likable characters. Also, just how she snuck past those those hundreds and thousands of White Walkers
Who were just not paying attention.
to then knife the night. Yeah, I don't know how she did that, but
they were
incredible.
Were texting.
Yeah, we won't spend the whole episode hating on. We've done pretty good, not just purely hating on the last season of the show.
Yeah, we'll get there.
So Hans, you have back-to-back picks, my friend.
So with my fourth pick, I'm going to go with the character that I think had far more to do with defending the North, and that is Jon Snow, who I believe is a steal in the fourth round here. And
yeah,
I will go ahead and say, will serve as my vice president to support his brother in the show, Mr. Robb Stark. I think that's a great pairing at president and VP. VP is sort of the role that Jon Snow was born to fill as well. So I'm very happy
true.
with my president and VP.
Always the bridesmaid, never the bride.
Well,
yeah.
so
exactly.
I will push back a little bit here with my knowledge of Jon Snow. I do agree. I mean, I think he was born to be, maybe the president. I think a lot of people, at least in the show universe, would argue. But he's extremely reluctant. He doesn't really seem to want any part of that whatsoever. So I don't know that he would be that enthusiastic. And I know you guys both said that VP is kind of like the least important role here, which I disagree with. But just to use that own logic, I would be worried that he would not want to be involved in an executive branch really in any facet.
To play devil's advocate,
Mm-hmm.
just given his position on the show and who Jon Snow is, VP is kind of the perfect position for him.
It does. It seems
everyone
like
expects him to fill a position,
Mm-hmm.
but as VP, if your expectations for that role aren't very high to start with, he could be fine with that.
Sure.
He's sort of the backgrounds guy.
If he had to fill a position on this list at all, that would be the one that I think personality-wise he probably fits in most to. And is Robb Stark your president?
He is.
That's a good working relationship.
Good
They've
combo,
spent an
that's
entire
what I'm
lifetime of Robb being the favorite son and Jon kind of being second tier.
And Robb never has to look over his shoulder, given Jon Snow's reluctance to be the head guy in the show.
That's fair. I do think getting Jon Snow in the fourth round is probably a pretty big steal. Has very obvious, strong leadership characteristics. Just kind of a good guy. He's like the good guy of the show.
He will go wherever my president Robb Stark demands and fill any role that the cabinet needs him to fill.
I love it.
All right, with my fifth pick, again, I think this is a steal, and I'll go ahead and say he will be serving as my Secretary of State. My cabinet's full of Starks. I'm going with Bran Stark for my Secretary of State.
I have so many thoughts about this.
I'm so excited.
This is a podcast. Let's hear him.
I think he's completely insufferable.
Yep.
I find him so difficult to work with. So I'm assuming, like, for your sake, you're talking about post-Ravenization, right? Where now he's like this all-seeing eye god, whatever.
Yes.
His responsibility in that he holds to himself is to play as little a role in affairs as possible. He knows everything that is, everything that was, and everything that is to be, and he says nothing. So, like, I just do not think this works well with the other people you've surrounded him with. The fact that he's made king at the end is absurd to me. Like,
Yep.
For all of these reasons. Like, his whole role as a person in the story is to be this kind of ambivalent, backwards presence and not participate in the story. So, I'm not exactly sure what you're getting out of him here.
Hans, you ever button?
So no, Secretary of State, he, in my world, he will be playing a much more outward and aggressive role.
You're just gonna make him do it? Like, it's not been a part of his character to be spoken or to be opinionated because he's like God.
But that's what I want in my Secretary of State.
Okay. Oh, my God.
I'm getting the best of both worlds in my Secretary of State.
I don't know. I find it just a weird fit. He was on my list too, and for all the reasons I listed, I just removed him from every position just because I find him like he will actively, if he knows something bad is going to happen, he will actively not participate if he thinks it leads to, I don't know, X different outcome, because that's, you know, his will in the universe. Like,
such a passive character.
Yeah, it's very frustrating.
I will say I was not going to take Bran for any of my roles, but I'm glad he was taken because I think we should discuss this. Is there a more botched and disappointing story arc of a single, like, such promising character in the history of television than Bran Stark?
Well, you know what's funny is the only thing I would say is worse is probably Daenerys. But I do think
but Daenerys went somewhere. Like, Daenerys was an active player in her story. I mean, it was frustrating that, like, this, you know, character you think is, you know, offering hope turns out to be this horrible, evil, you know, witch, basically, especially since it was so poorly handled.
The frustrating part is they could have set that up and they just kind of chose
just kind of crammed it on in there at the last second. But Bran, I mean, like you said, he's like one with the all of time, and you know they spend basically the whole show setting him up to be like, oh, this is going to be the guy who like is the answer to all these things, and basically his most impact is literally just sitting there as bait.
Well, they have
doesn't he sort of ascend to sort of the pinnacle of the show, though? I mean, he ends the entire series as
which we
king.
Can all agree is complete bullshit. Yeah, he does. And listen, they have a stakes problem with him, right? Like, if you have this guy who's a very active participant who also can see through all of time and space, like, that becomes a pretty overpowered thing. So their solution to that is to make him useless and stupid.
Yeah.
So like,
just horrible
I
job.
get it, but it just doesn't. Yeah.
I also will say that I feel like Secretary of State, you know, should, you know, be able to be diplomatic and likable, and I don't know that Bran really hits either of those traits very strongly. So I do have my contest for Bran.
Welcome to the podcast. You're getting absolutely roasted.
I'm very happy with my pick.
Well, that's good. I'm glad you are. And you know, it's going to come down to the voters, right? It doesn't matter what we say.
That's true.
So
like on every single one of these, I thought I've won, and I'm pretty sure I've lost on like all the votes, but that's fine.
Well, at the time of recording, we are Twitter voting is live for our third pod, and I think this is going to be our sixth or seventh pod.
Yeah.
I'm not sure exactly, but
I'm
2-0 so far, baby. 2-0,
which is absurd.
Feel good about that. And it's my pick to hopefully build towards another winner here. And I can go a lot of different ways with this one, I think. Like I said, my two picks I still don't have locked down for specific roles. I think I'll go ahead and take my president here and let other things fall where they may. Actually, no, you know what? I'm going to take my Master of Coin. To me, this was actually like the pick that I was planning on taking last. But I kind of want to see how Preston's next two picks go before I take my actual last pick, because I have such versatility left in my team. I'm loving it. I'm going to take Samwell Tarly here as my Master of Coin. He's just such a learned person. I feel like the obvious pick for Master of Coin is Peter Baelish Littlefinger, but there's no way in hell I am letting him within 10 miles of my executive branch. Not a chance.
That's a good call.
There's no way he doesn't backstab every single other member of my cabinet, so can't have that. And Sam, you know, I'm going to use this role because I don't think there is another great fit to just get like a well-rounded person who's going to bring insight from a lot of different areas, be unbiased, objective, educated. He becomes the Grand Maester at the very end of the show. Just a great, nice guy. You know, I think so many of the players in Game of Thrones, you know, do have those, you know, personal interests motivating them. Pretty much everyone, like even the characters you like and that you would consider to be good characters, are out for themselves in a way. And Sam, I think, is a great voice to have on a cabinet because he clearly is not that. Like he really is just a good dude. And I think to have that voice in there, you know, I could have put him in different roles, but I'm kind of considering my Master of Coin like my throwaway role. So I'm bringing Samwell in for his overall value that he can bring to my team.
I like the pick. I think Master of Coin, that's probably the position on our list here where you don't want him to overshadow anybody else in your cabinet, and you just want him to do your job.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you kind of just don't want to worry about it so much if you don't have to. And yeah, I had him for kind of chief of staff, and then I leant towards somebody who I thought had a little more muscle maybe. So, but I was kind of hoping he'd stay too.
All right, I'm loving this. You guys are complimenting like every single one of my picks. I feel great.
You've got this win. I think you've got it in the bag. Okay.
Wow.
So I get my last two here to kind of round things out, and both of these are really outside the box. But I hope listeners to the show will understand where I'm coming from. So first, I'm running into a problem here where I'm missing a Secretary of State. Like, that to me is the second most important position on this entire list, and we can get into an argument about structure of government or whatever, but it really is to me. I'm taking someone who I know I can trust and who's very well traveled, but who I'm guessing didn't come up on a lot of lists, and that is Catelyn Stark. Now,
Ooh.
I think she meets those things I've already said. We've seen her go into hostile environments without a sword and come out with a deal. And that's the kind of character you need to fill this role. You don't need a bruiser. You don't need a fighter. You don't need a temper. You need somebody who's going to come in knowing what their strengths are and then come out with something that works for everybody. So I like that pick, but I know she's not probably going to, raise a bunch of eyebrows or anything.
She's not going to get the people going.
No, but I think it's safe. I think it's safe, and I like her. She's one of my favorite characters.
That's
Any
a solid
thoughts
pick.
before my next one?
Well, could you remind me? I missed who you said what that spot was for.
Catelyn Stark.
Role-wise.
Secretary of State.
Okay.
The only like non-sword character here.
Sure.
Okay, and for VP, who I've already established in this show, is kind of a useless role. I'm thinking a little bit about the universe of Game of Thrones. And I said this already, but I'll say it again. Whoever I make president, people are coming for him. And, Tywin, my president, is a very talented mind. Very talented guy. But he's getting up there in age. I'm a little worried about if he could fight off some people. Now, this is rough, because if this person ever becomes president, we're going to have a problem on our hands. But I'm essentially drafting a bodyguard for my president. I need him to be around my president all the time. And I know there's a rule right now in the United States that the president and the vice president aren't allowed to be in the same place a lot, but I'm breaking that for this. So I'm drafting the Mountain.
Wow.
Now, there are a lot of personalities going on in my cabinet. I don't need another one. I need essentially a hired gun. I need somebody who is not going to speak, who's just going to shut up, and who's just going to do what we need him to do. And honestly, I think the Mountain, with his zombie-like loyalty in the later seasons, if Tywin were to be removed or killed and he became president, we could just convince him to step down and make room for who's third in that line there, Hans? Is it like Speaker of the House or something? I don't know what it is, but we could convince him to move and maybe get my Secretary of State up into a presidential role, something like that.
Like Bran Stark.
Wow, the Mountain, I would never have even remotely considered I would not have considered even considering the Mountain for this draft.
Sometimes you realize that what you've got will work on its own, and you think just throwing another person in there would just mix it up too much. So you would essentially throw in a giant piece of sword meat to take the hits and dish them out.
See, I feel like maybe the last 3.5 years have clouded your guys' how you value vice president. Like Mike Pence is too swaying you. There have been some good vice presidents out there.
Any authority that a vice president has ever had has been given to him, not by the United States Constitution, not by any sort of law or bill, but exclusively by the president. They have an occasional authority to come in and break a Senate tie, which we've seen, twice in 30 years. Mm-hmm. So he is worth whatever you make him worth, right? Okay. And for this, I just need him to play defense. Like not political defense, physical defense.
No, I am looking at my record of the pick so far, and I'm reminded that your first round pick was one Tywin Lannister as your president. So now you're making the Mountain the right-hand man of Tywin, and that really concerns me a lot. Those two together,
they were very effective in what
they were effective.
did.
Yes, they were effective in the governmental structure that is present in Game of Thrones. I'm not sure that is what I would want at running the free world in our universe.
Yeah, I feel like the first action of Tywin is going to be to remove presidential term limits by executive order or something. It's it's going to get out of hand.
And then the Mountain is going to kill the Supreme Court leaders who aren't going to vote in his favor. There's a lot of problems here matching these two up together. I think
we'll come up with better roads or highways. So that's good.
And that's the important thing, damn it.
That's the important thing, infrastructure.
And so, Preston, I just want to confirm, as that was your last pick, that you have your commerce master of coin as Varys in your final lineup.
That is correct.
Okay.
That is correct.
All right, so that brings up my final pick. And I was a little torn because there is one person who I thought would be a really great president that is looking like they're not going to be taken. But we can talk about that in the second half of the show, because I do think my most pressing need is Secretary of Defense here. And I will tie down Tyrion to be my president and Olenna Tyrell to be my Secretary of State. And maybe I'll flip-flop on those, because I think either would be great at either role. But for my Secretary of Defense, I really could go a lot of different ways here. This is why I waited to take this last pick, because I think there are so many characters that will fill this role well. I'm going to go ahead and take... right now, I'm torn between two characters. I'm going to take Grey Worm. I'm going to take Grey Worm because I think he's going to be more popular in the popular vote, and I'm going to play that game, do the dirty style. He's just a great military leader. He, is one of the very few people that I think, has that military acumen while also being a decent dude. I don't think he's going to be as war hungry as some of the other people that I could take. I don't want to be in war all the time. That's not what I'm looking for. But if it comes to that, I want someone who has that level of expertise, and Grey Worm definitely brings that. So very happy to get him as my Secretary of Defense.
He is also possibly the most loyal character throughout the entire show.
Absolutely.
Yes.
I like
to a fault at times, yeah.
Yes.
Now, do you get the insane army of Unsullied with Grey Worm? Because that's a pretty sweet deal.
I would say probably not. But I'll take it.
I mean, he's shown that he can command various types of troops, so I don't know. I like that. I'm on board.
Sweet. All right, Hans, why don't you wrap us up? Final pick of the draft.
So I got a couple things to say before I pick.
Sure.
One is that I feel a lot of pressure with this last pick, because I feel like we're going to have some angry listeners with several of the characters who get left off of our draft entirely.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we'll talk about that.
But
reminder, this is not a draft of the best Game of Thrones characters.
No.
Correct.
So before you send in all your hate emails to draftedpod@gmail.com, keep that in mind.
The one I'm specifically thinking of, though, is I will not be drafting Daenerys Targaryen with my final pick.
You can't.
And
you just can't.
Crazy.
Yeah.
It doesn't make any sense.
Her out of our draft entirely. All right, so with my last pick, and now I do feel like an idiot for taking Bronn with my first overall pick, because I will be moving him down to Secretary of Treasury and Commerce. I had him slated in for my Chief of Staff, but given that I landed with Robb Stark as my president and Jon Snow as my VP, with my last pick, slated for the Chief of Staff role is Ned Stark.
Wow. Just bringing the whole family back together.
I think it's just perfect.
Nepotism right off the bat.
Yeah.
Exactly.
I appreciate
Not
it, though.
a problem. Also, the father's going to work for the son?
Absolutely.
I think Ned would be fine with
think
that,
he'd be okay
don't
with
you?
that?
Yeah, I really think that would not be a problem for Ned. Would be a problem for a lot of other characters in Game of Thrones, not for Ned Stark, I don't think.
Nope.
That's probably fine. I like it. Ned was on my list. I don't really remember what even concerned me about it, but boy, you were really all aboard the Stark train. You have Sansa, Robb, Jon.
I have Sansa. He has Bran, Robb, Jon Snow, and Ned. So basically, he's just the male Starks.
And Jamie.
And Jamie Lannister, yeah.
You need Rickon to do something incredibly useless. and I'm sure you get at least a couple direwolves with that, and those have a lot of utility. Those can be very useful.
Yeah, the direwolves are big.
I'm kind of thinking I get a dragon too, given I've got Jon Snow.
I don't think that's right.
I mean, Drogon is in my cabinet, so he's.
But there's a question: if you two were to go to war with each other, could Drogon pull the trigger?
I don't think he could.
I don't know. He is a dragon.
Well, I've got Grey Worm.
Kind of lives to burn and eat things.
That's what I got Grey Worm and the Unsullied for, you know. Mm-hmm. I mean, Ned Stark. My one concern is that like he just does not play the subtleties of the game well. You know, like he's definitely a man of honor, but I mean he just blunder after blunder. Really, you know, shot himself in the foot. That's got himself killed. Yeah. So I mean, you know, great guy, virtuous, lives very strictly to his code of honor, which I absolutely respect, but. I'm not sure how well he would survive in our current political climate.
What position do you have him for?
Chief of Staff.
Chief of Staff. I had not planned to draft him, but given that I got Robb and Jon Snow for President and VP, I think it's a perfect.
Well, you've got the North vote, that's for sure.
I do.
That's true. Yeah, and everyone knows that the North vote is overproportioned by the Electoral College, so you're looking okay.
Yes. All right, so that was the last pick of the draft. To recap, Hans took Bronn first. He's going to be his Master of Coin type. He's got Robb Stark as president, Jaime Lannister, Secretary of Defense, Jon Snow as vice president, Bran Stark, Secretary of State, and Ned Stark, Chief of Staff. I have Tyrion Lannister as my president, Olenna Tyrell as Secretary of State, Drogon as my vice president, Sansa as Chief of Staff, Samwell Tarly as my Master of Coin, and Grey Worm as my Secretary of Defense. And Preston has Tywin Lannister as his president, Varys as his Master of Coin, right, Preston? And then Brienne of Tarth, Chief of Staff, Secretary of Defense, Khal Drogo, Catelyn Stark, Secretary of State, and the Mountain, Gregor Clegane, as his Vice President. Got a lot to break down. We'll do so right after this break. Okay, we are back, and I want to ask you guys. I ask this every episode, but gonna do it with a slight twist for this episode. One, tell me someone who you were unable to take, who you had, before the draft were kind of excited to take, and then two, tell me a cabinet position that you wish we had been able to draft and who you would have picked for that spot. Preston, you want to start us off?
Sure. Boy. There wasn't really anybody I desperately wanted that kind of went undrafted. We obviously, I think, paid our respects to the characters that are just unbelievably evil. I thought about this is going to sound so stupid. I thought about Tommen for a couple spots just because he's so pure of heart, and I thought that I could just trust him to learn and do good. He seems to just have a desire to want to get better. He is vulnerable to long falls from high distances, but besides that, I think he would have been a good pick. A position I would have liked, kind of the ability to fill, if that's what you're asking, is if we had a director of national intelligence position, there's a lot of great characters to fill that, specifically Littlefinger and Varys. But you already kind of hinted at it in the show. A director of the CIA is the perfect job for Arya Stark. Would have been magical. Or even the guy who teaches her is named Jaqen Hagar. That guy. Make that guy director of the CIA. He is very focused, and he can teach all of the agents how to do cool face stuff. So that's probably what I would have liked to fill.
Yeah, Hans, how about you?
I think we're going to hear about leaving Arya Stark off of our draft boards from a lot of different people.
I mean, so too.
We talked a little bit about Daenerys being left off, and I think we justified that with good reason. But Arya's kind of the hero of the show, and frankly, she's a pretty versatile character. So she's probably one that I would have liked to draft for a position, but just the way the draft board came down didn't fit into any roles. But I would say the position I would have liked to have drafted for probably would have been Attorney General. And one character I thought about just throwing you all a big loop for was getting Ramsay Bolton in this.
Oh no! As Attorney General?
As my Attorney General. Just to throw you guys just for a loop.
Yeah, that would have worked.
Why?
Why? I think you may have been saved from yourself there, Hans. I don't think a single person would have voted for a executive branch with Ramsay Bolton.
Any team with Ramsay Bolton on it.
with my president, Rob Stark.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Not sure that would have worked out well, but I appreciate you for thinking outside the box. I like that. The pod could use a little more of that, I think. For me, I really wanted, I had penciled him in as my president, Mance Raider. He unifies all the wildlings despite, how much they all hate each other. And that, is there any quality that we need more right now as our president than that? I'm not sure.
And aren't we all just a bunch of wildlings?
So true. Amen, Preston. And a man of great honor, dignity, and also willing, to do, kind of maybe this little shady things to make sure his people get what they need. So I think a lot of the qualities that you would want in a president. And I was sad not to take him. I was really torn in my last couple picks. Do I take him? But I already had Tyrion and Olenna Tyrell, so I knew one of them would be a very good president. So I wanted to fill some of those more specific roles.
Mance Raider was kind of off my board, but I probably should have thought about him a little bit more.
Yeah,
right.
I was a little surprised he didn't get taken. But, he's not like one of the core characters, so it's not shocking to me. But I think his character traits lend himself very well to that role.
Is he in more than one season of?
Yeah, I think he's in like 3 or 4.
Oh, okay. I'm misremembering then.
I would have loved to take Maester Lewin as my Secretary of Education.
Oh, education. Okay. Yeah, I like that.
Yeah.
It's a solid pick. Honestly, despite having medieval teachings of medicine and things like that, still would be better than Betsy DeVos. So,
oh yes,
good.
Significantly.
Low bar to clear, Preston.
No, very exceedingly low bar. My God, but we don't want to get into that too much. We don't want to bring down the fun of the pod. But the most fun part of the pod for many of you, I'm sure, is when we talk about the worst pick and just absolutely destroy each other. So, Preston, what was the worst pick of the draft?
It's probably one of mine, but I don't really want to pile on myself too much. I really actually don't even hate that pick. I just have questions about it, which is Drogon as VP. I have not read all the books, and I have a bunch of friends who do. And
I did not factor in the books at all. I felt like that was just factoring in the
me neither. But I'm curious to know, if the dragons are able to fill a role like that. I mean, listen, if it works, you've got the best team, and to me, it's not even very close. If it doesn't work, you still might have the best team, which we'll get into. But even then, I don't really hate the pick. Probably the Mountain for me is VP. I had kind of forgotten that your VP and your president aren't allowed or supposed to be in the same place at the same time. So drafting a bodyguard for the president and putting him as vice president seems...
Wait, and you're going to have Secret Service for that, play.
It doesn't seem like a good idea. And yeah, you're right. I will have Secret Service. It's not like these are the only 6 people in the country. Yeah, so Preston didn't do so good. So
Hans, to you, what was the worst pick? I mean, are we all just going to vote Mountain here?
I'm going to go a different route. I will say, same thing, Preston. I'm not as thrilled. I'm happy where I ended up, but in hindsight, I would have done it a little differently with my number 1 overall pick, but it worked out. That being said, I think the worst pick, and it's not even close, is Tywin Lannister for president. I pity the fool that has to live under Tywin Lannister rule in any kingdom.
I don't know, man. I think he matches it really well, and I think once he gets what he wants for his family and for himself, I think he makes very logical choices, and he seems to be governed by whatever's going to create the best outcome. He does torture lots of people, and may not be as kind to the peasantry as I would necessarily like, but I think everybody else is going to have a time.
He disowns his son, and hey, I mean,
there's a conflict
I guess once you burn the world down, you could build it back up. That's one way to look at it.
Yeah, he would burn the world down just to be king of the ashes.
Hans, how as our political guru, how would you compare Preston's executive branch to the current executive branch of the United States government?
I do have to say, and I don't think it's close, if we were to look at these 3 different draft boards, Preston's is by far the closest to the existing administration. Again, going back to Tywin, he's kind of the rich guy, the older guy, nobody really likes, and kind of rises to power sort of by happenstance.
I don't have any desire to defend myself here.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, that says it all.
Okay.
I mean, it's going to come.
Does that make Brienne of Tarth Ivanka Trump?
Oh my God.
I think so.
I'm ready for this one to be over.
I think so. Poor Preston.
Khal Drogo is Eric.
For Preston, for about 40% of the population, getting the executive branch closest to Donald Trump's is going to get you the vote.
Yeah. Electoral college.
That's not too bad. Not too bad.
And then Daniel and I split the rest and we lose.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, screw the popular vote.
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to pile on the mountain, but it just was so clearly the worst pick. I appreciate the creativity and the line of thought, but it just isn't there for me. I'm sorry, Preston.
So I think the moral of this story is this went exceedingly terrible for me, and this was the only episode where I wasn't drinking alcohol. And
causation, not correlation. Yep.
Yeah.
2 and 2 equals
makes
4.
Me smarter.
Could be. I will say I also strongly question not to pile entirely on Preston, but I strongly question the Bran Stark pick. I think he can offer some value, but Secretary of State is definitely not the slot I would have him in.
Agreed.
But yeah, so who has the best executive branch? I think we know that Preston is finally not going to pick himself here, so I'm excited for that.
We got a tiebreaker.
It's Daniel's. I think even if you remove Drogon from the equation entirely and just have an empty chair where VP sits, I think he's got the best. Samwell Tarly at Master of Coin is probably my favorite pick that we had of the draft. Because it's not... It made... as soon as you said it, I kind of perked up a little bit and I wasn't sure, but as soon as you started explaining it, it made so much sense. I mean, he is the most book-rich character in the show, with maybe the exception of Tyrion. And you have both of them. So I think you've got the best case here.
I love to hear that. Hans, what do you think?
Well, obviously, I think my cabinet is the stronger of the 3. Just looking at who we all picked, I think sort of the tiebreaker between mine and Daniel's is I like Jaime Lannister at Secretary of Defense a little more than I do Grey Worm.
Interesting.
And I just think the 1-2 punch with Robb and Jon Snow is a little stronger than Lady Tyrell and Tyrion.
Yeah,
Can I mention
your
something
ticket,
here?
I think, is definitely going to be more electable, so to speak. Two very popular
Let's have
characters.
the electability conversation.
Electability.
Okay, I have to mention something here about Hans's team that I'm only just now coming around to.
Uh-huh.
So let's pass over Bronn for a second, who was the first pick. On your team, you have 2 characters who were ruthlessly killed by their enemies. A third, if you count Jon Snow, who comes back, but again, was ruthlessly killed by their enemies. And then you have one who was ruthlessly crippled by an enemy, and then you have one who had his hand ruthlessly removed by an enemy. If your team is so successful, they sure need to start showing it, because half of them are dead and the other half can't seem to do anything right. So I am very concerned about your team's ability to actually accomplish anything. At least some
We're
of
the
my
ultimate
team members
team
are
players.
alive.
We put it all on the line for the people.
Yeah, I will say
I suppose.
I run away with the still alive tally.
Yeah. Yeah. Elena Tyrell, no, but
She's the only
everybody
one.
else, yeah, you seem to be doing okay.
She's the only one I lost.
Yep.
And rest in peace to the rest. All of you
think-
gone too soon, except for Tywin. But
This was so bad.
Preston will bounce back next week. But Hans, thanks so much for joining us, man. I hope you enjoyed this as much as Preston and I did.
Thanks for having me, guys. Appreciate it.
Yeah, we'll have to have you back on for our next politics-inspired draft.
I'm here. I'll do it.
Well, listeners, you know what to do. Go over to Twitter @DraftedPod and vote for the winner of this episode. I mean, we all know it's me, but, do the right thing. Maybe vote for Hans. Definitely do not vote for Preston. I'm sorry, Preston, but it's the right thing to do.
No, seriously, don't vote for me. It's much more useful to put your vote for somebody that's actually going to win. I am the third-party candidate here that only serves as spoiler, so don't do it.
Yeah, don't throw away
Preston
your vote.
represents the protest vote.
It's true, yes.
But yeah, vote over there and hit us up for ideas for future episodes. Again, that's @DraftedPod, or email us at draftedpod@gmail.com. This is really a fun episode. I hope you guys enjoyed it. And again, between this episode and next episode, please listen to some podcasts over on the Appen Podcast Network. They are why we're able to do this show the way we do. So hugely appreciative to Hans for that. Thanks, guys. We'll talk to you next week.